You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Zach Bechtold and Matt Franks. If you'd like to learn more about the Bearded Theologians, you can go online at beardedtheologians.com, where we have past podcasts, blogs, and a couple items for sale. So check us out, beardedtheologians.com. Thank you for listening, and enjoy this week's show.
You're listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast, hosted by Matt Franks
and Zach Bechtold.
So this week on the podcast, we're going to be diving into the Psalms, and we're going to be looking at Psalm 119, verses 33 through 40. Zach, you ready for this?
Why did you turn into Kermit the Frog?
I don't know.
Yes, let's read Psalm 119, verses 33 through 40, and see where we go. This is right smack dab in the middle of Psalm 119. Kind of when you get into the middle of the Psalms or the high number Psalms, they're long. There's a lot there. And so we find it here right in the middle. Lord, teach me your statutes. Teach me what your statutes are about, and I will guard every part of them. Help me understand so I can guard your instruction and keep it with all my heart. Lead me on the trail of your commandments, because that is what I want. Turn my heart to your laws, not to greedy gain. Turn my eyes away from looking at worthless things. Make me live by your way. Confirm your promise to your servant, the promise that is for all those who honor you. Remove the insults that I dread, because your rules are good. Look how I desire your precepts. Make me live by your righteousness. Man, when you hear that little excerpt from Psalm 119, what pokes out to you? You're muted.
I think what struck me at first, there were two words that really stuck with me. First is Lord, teach me. I guess phrases, not words. Lord, teach me, and then later on, lead me on. I guess lead, and then it sets up for a good way of how we really what we need to be paying attention to. We need to be taught. Teach me what your statutes are about, and I will guard every part of them. And I like this. Help me understand so I can guard your instruction. It's amazing to me how much we don't pay attention to how much education is a part of the faith. Mm-hmm. I think there are times where the reason side of things or the feeling side of things are become more of the dominant thing that is needed than actually learning. And what I really mean by that is that, like, a lot of people leave the church because they don't feel like they're being fed, and it's a feeling thing. They use the word feel. Versus I could understand if someone left or someone was not happy with the teachings of the church. That's a little bit different than the feeling. When we lean into that feeling, we're not being fed. You're just being kind of, I guess, petted like a cat, just kind of like, oh, you feel good, feel good. We're not teaching anything. We're not learning anything. And just as well as I do that, I think one of the things that we are fighting, or not really fighting, but struggling with, is people who don't know what the core of the faith is. Mm-hmm. They know the feelings, they know what made them feel good or what helped them in a tough time. But if you ask them to talk about, faith or, any kind of doctrine whatsoever, people are not what they should be. And it really is the church's job to teach those things. And mm-hmm. I've seen that be a gap a little bit more so in these last few years. And mm-hmm. Zach, as you think about this psalm, what I said, what speaks to you?
Well, two things that I think there's a real dichotomy when you begin to look at church people as cats and dogs, and how they interact with the church and with the good news and with I don't know that that's for this podcast though, or this episode, but I want to unpack that later on. Put that on the idea board, because there's something there. The other is, as you were talking about, teach me, O Lord, lead me in these ways, not so that I can go and beat others over the head with it, not so that I can go and make sure everybody else is doing the law and living into your commandments, but so that I can. And I was watching a TikTok the other day, as elder millennials do, and it was an ex-evangelical pastor who has left ministry, has left the church, done all the things, but grew up in the same culture of evangelical church that you and I did, with hell houses and things like that, and was talking about that very thing of so many people our age are leaving the church because of how we were told, how we were brought into the church with fear and shame and guilt and all of the things, right? And he was talking, kind of answering the question, why don't we have young people? Why aren't young families going? And it's because we tried to scare them straight, right? And we tried to scare them into a relationship with God, and whether it's with God or people, fear-based relationships don't work. And so when I hear this passage out of Psalm 119, that's not what the psalmist is looking for here. Not looking to create a fear-based relationship, not looking to create a fear-based relationship with others, but Lord, teach me what you're about. Lord, help me understand so that I can keep it, so that I can live into the laws and the commandments in my heart. And I love that back end. Remove the insults that I dread, because your rules are good. Look how I desire your precepts. Make me live by your righteousness, knowing that if I live into who you're calling me to be, if I live into your law and commandments, it is going to be different than the world around me. And help me through that. Help me through the translation here cracks me up, the insults that I dread, but help me through the hard parts of life. When people start pushing back, that's going to be hard. When people see a change in me, that's going to be hard. And help me live into that, not change them, help me live into this. And I think that's a core foundational thing about being a Christian that we have lost or tossed out the window in the last 25 years, that it's about making other people do the thing that we want them to do, instead of, oh God, change me. Let me live into this and who you're calling me to be, not so that we can make others, but so that we can live in this way. And so that's kind of what I hear through all of that.
Yeah, and I think that, like, that's the heart of the matter when you look at this. It's encouraging you to learn, but to be led by God, and what God has set forth. I just, I don't know, it's one of those ones that, like, you could definitely, actually, you could preach a whole sermon series on just this little section here with what it's asking.
Oh, for sure.
Asking you to do. Verse 39, remove the insults that I dread, because your rules are good.
Yeah.
Just, like, how do you unpack that? Like, I mean, it's one of those things that you can just, there's so much fun you could have with this. But I really do, like, I think my biggest beef with the church has been the lack of knowledge, the lack of education that we have shared. And we just rely on the pastor to be it. And that the Sunday morning's preaching is supposed to be all of that and a bag of chips, and that's it. And that's really, preaching is a starting point for learning. It's not, it shouldn't be a collegial lecture on, the word teach. I mean, we could break that down if we wanted to. I mean, I got the knowledge to do that, but to me, that doesn't inspire me. That doesn't encourage me to live out my faith and to explore my faith more. I think it's that next step of, like, being in, and I don't necessarily like this terminology because it's kind of trips me up a little bit, being in the word.
Right.
But it is something we are asked to do as followers of Jesus, to learn and to grow. And that's something we have to do. It's not something we, can tread lightly on.
Right. One of the things that I'm asking every group in my church right now, whether it's children's and youth or my musicians, right? Whether it's my praise team, my handbells, brass, choirs, my staff, my leadership teams, all of us are asking the same three questions all year long to live into this very thing. How are you making disciples through worship? How are we making disciples through leadership? How are we making disciples through insert the blank, right? Or fill in the blank. And then it begins to build on that. How are we helping disciples move forward in their journey? And how are we inviting people to engage and grow? That very thing. Everything that we do has to have that purpose of teaching, of drawing closer to God, drawing closer to each other. And it's not just the responsibility of the pastor on Sunday, like you said. That's a point, whether it be a starting point or midway point, whatever. It doesn't matter. It's part of it. But every piece that we do in the church, Monday through Sunday, lives into that. And if it doesn't, we're missing the boat. We've missed an opportunity to lean into people's lives, to teach, to make space for people to find what's sacred, and to come closer to God in those ways. And if we ignore that, or we just flat out don't do it, and I think that's a lot of what's happened in the last few years, pre-COVID, right? We got super lax on the teaching part, and the educational pieces and asking these questions, and COVID hit, and the church was no longer had it.
Really what it is, and I had a coaching session 2 weeks ago now, I guess. And one of the things that the coach had said was that there's this journey that you follow. And I've been thinking about that a lot since she told me about that. But it's to draw people, like to get people in. There's the get people in portion of the church. There's the relationship building portion of the church, and then there's the discipleship making portion of the church. And where everybody gets hung up is that relationship building.
Right.
You will have some filter into the discipleship things, and those are the people that are here all the time, or doing the work, being disciples. And so the thing we can reflect on, the thing that we can talk about, I think the thing that the church needs to do better is to move people from just a relationship, being a social club, to actually being a disciple of Jesus. And the way that happens is through, it's education. That's
right.
I definitely think that that's important. And it's the one thing that has always bothered me. And I didn't grow up in the faith. I didn't go to Sunday school, didn't, all that stuff. But I remember early on in my faith, being flustered that I knew just as much, if not more, than people who'd been at the church, right, that could be my parents, that has always bothered me. And I know you've encountered this too, especially with what we have going on in our denomination, people not knowing where United Methodists have stood on things for over 100 years.
Right.
We just got through Labor Day, and, we share the Labor Day situation of how Methodists were a part of the social, that social gospel of helping for labor rights. And, people don't want to hear that. Like that's not our church. And it's the same thing that we've seen lately with the Southern Baptist pastor that came out and said, talked about how even if he's preaching the Beatitudes, that people are saying that that's not Jesus, that's that's a woke church. And
right.
Like I was like, have you ever read the Gospels? Like, and most like we've got to do better at that. And I think that's, you and I definitely have that passion for that, to try to get people past just the relationship building and into more of a deeper sense of discipleship and connection. And I think, that's definitely something I've been trying to figure out in this new appointment.
Yeah. That's really a great place to land, is wherever you are in the church, as leadership, as a layperson, as pastor, whatever, however this comes to you, how are you growing? How are you digging in and learning more? And how are you, if you're in leadership in any kind of way, how are you making that space for others? What this podcast is all about, right?
Yeah. And that's the one thing that Zach and I are attempting to do, is to try to show how faith can be done in a different way, even if we agree or disagree or, whatever. And definitely we need to engage that in all the ways that are available to us. And what a great time to be alive, to have access to all this stuff. and that's a lot of fun. I mean, what a great time to be alive. I know that's not being said a lot in the church, but in some ways there is. I mean, there's a lot of great opportunities and possibilities if we just lean in and really follow Jesus. So
right. I like it.
So with that in mind, we want to encourage you to go to our website at beardedtheologians.com and check out all of our great content and past things that we have up. It's also getting closer to Pastor Appreciation Month. And with that in mind, buy your pastor a Bearded Theologian shirt, mug, whatever. Those are great things that can go a long way. And so thank you for joining us today. And don't forget to like and share our episodes. And so for the Bearded Theologians, I'm Matt Franks.
I'm Zach Bechtold. Thanks for checking us out.
Guys, I want you to subscribe and like this video and push that thumbs up.
Thank you for listening to the Bearded Theologians podcast. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on all social media outlets. You can check out old episodes and more information at beardedtheologians.com. Thanks for checking us out.